Welcome back, Focus Learners. Okay, today's explainer is an absolute monster of a topic. We are diving into a massive, game-changing wave of developments that completely reshape the tech world in mid-2026. If you've been following the AI space at all, you know the last few months have been nothing short of revolutionary. We aren't just talking about models getting a little smarter here. We are talking about a total paradigm shift in how we interact with machines.
Seriously, think about it for a second. What actually happens when AI stops just typing out answers and literally starts controlling your computer? Well, it's time to face a fascinating reality. The era of the simple prompt, it's dead. The frontier models of 2026 are practically hijacking our keyboards. They're moving out of that little chat window and directly into our workflows, executing complex, multi-hour projects completely on their own. It's an incredible leap for sure, but it also brings some pretty sobering new realities we need to talk about.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the agentic AI leap. Second, the 2026 frontier model wars. Third, the open source uprising. And finally, the security complication.
Section 1. The agentic AI leap, orchestrating the workspace.
So, we've rapidly moved past the old days of just typing a prompt and getting a block of text back, right? In 2026, these models are actually orchestrating entire workflows and using computers exactly like you or I would. For example, Anthropic rolled out Claude's computer use feature, which lets the model literally look at a screen and interact with your apps, complete with built-in safeguard scans to sniff out prompt injections. Meanwhile, Google launched their anti-gravity agent in public preview. This thing runs in an isolated Linux sandbox where it can autonomously plan, reason, write code, manage files, and browse the web. We are now firmly in the age of workflow orchestration.
Section 2. 2026 Frontier Model Wars, the Arms Race.
Let's see how this builds, because to reach this crazy level of autonomy, the big tech giants locked into a blistering arms race throughout Q2 and Q3 of 2026. Back in February, we got Claude 4.6 alongside Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro. Then, boom, in May, Anthropic drops Claude Opus 4.8. And July was just massive. OpenAI completely restructured its lineup and unleashed the GPT 5.6 family, including their flagship Soul model, while Google launched Gemini 3.6 Flash to act as their stable, low-latency agentic workhorse. Now, when you actually put these models head-to-head in a real production environment, the numbers are pretty mind-blowing. Claude Opus 4.8 took a commanding lead in software engineering, hitting 69.2% on SWE Bench Pro. GPT 5.5 came in at 58.6%, followed by DeepSeek V4 Pro and Gemini 3.1 Pro. But you know what's truly staggering? The context windows. While GPT 5.5 offered 256K tokens, Claude and DeepSeek pushed a massive 1 million tokens, and Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro unlocked a 2 million token context window. I mean, that allows for massive text, video, audio, and code inputs all in a single prompt.
Section 3. The open source uprising, closing the gap. But hey, the closed-source giants definitely weren't the only ones making waves here. The open source and open weight communities absolutely shattered expectations. I mean, DeepSeek actually got their faster V4 Flash model to beat their larger Pro model on agentic coding benchmarks. At the exact same time, Meta's Llama 4 Scout unlocked an unbelievable 10 million token context window. The sheer scale just kept growing, with Moonshot AI launching Kimi K3, which is a massive 2.8 trillion parameter mixture of experts model. And then Jipu's GLM 5.2 emerged as the absolute value king, running at a blazing 168 tokens per second. In so many of these metrics, the gap between proprietary and open models completely vanished.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it completely flipped the script on pricing. You've got your flagship models like GPT 5.6 Soul and Claude Opus 5 anchoring the top end at around $5 for input and $25 to $30 for output per million tokens. But the budget and open tiers, they literally plummeted. Models like DeepSeek V4 Pro and Gemini 3.6 Flash suddenly offered incredible agentic capabilities for fractions of a penny compared to the top tier. It truly became a buyer's market for AI compute.
Section 4. The security complication. Unintended consequences.
Okay, so we need to pivot here, because to understand the sudden, pretty scary influx of severe vulnerabilities that came with all this newfound autonomy, we have to talk about a concept presented by Novi Security at Black Hat USA 2026. It turns out the primary point of failure wasn't actually the AI models themselves. It was the harness. The harness is basically the code connecting the AI model to the real world. It's the wrapper that decides what actions actually get executed based on whatever the model spits out. And unfortunately, this is exactly where the whole system broke down. So the crucial point is how this breaks down in practice, which Novi Security demonstrated brilliantly. Step 1. An attacker with absolutely zero privileges to a repo system simply opens a malicious GitHub issue. Step 2. An automated coding agent naturally reads that untrusted issue because, well, that's just a normal part of its workflow. Step 3. Because the harness is poorly validated, it gets tricked into executing the malicious payload on the CI runners. And configuration shipped by default, and completely unprivileged user could literally hijack the entire CI workflow.
And you guys, the severity of this literally cannot be overstated. We are talking about a maximum possible CVSS score of 10.0. That score was assigned to a vulnerability in the Gemini CLI, tracked as CVE 2026-12537. It was an OS command injection flaw in the container launcher that allowed an unprivileged attacker to run code on the host of a headless CI platform before the sandbox even had a chance to start. Under a specific flag, every single command the model asked for was just auto-approved.
And Claude code wasn't immune to this either. A flaw tracked as CVE 2026-543116 showed that if untrusted content slipped into a Claude code context, attackers could bypass the validators entirely. The harness was stripping single-quoted text for bash validation, which sounds good, but it actually meant malicious payloads slipped right through untouched. The attackers essentially turned Hugging Face's public download counter into an exfiltration channel, leaking out API keys one single character at a time.
This brings us back to a great quote from Elad Maged, a founding engineer over at Novi Security. The harness is the code between the model and the real world. That's the absolute crux of it. Across Gemini, Claude Code, and even OpenAI's Codex, the recurring failure was identical in nature. One part of the harness would mark a value as safe, and then a later part of the harness would act on that exact same value with way more authority than it ever should have had. The actual intelligence of the AI didn't even matter, because the wrapper around it was inherently flawed.
Fortunately, vendors jumped on this and patched these specific flaws really quickly. But listen, if you are building with these agents, you have to prioritize mitigations. Update your CLIs immediately. Gemini CLI needs to be on version 0.39.1, run Gemini CLI on 0.122, and Claude Code requires version 2.1.163. OpenAI also changed their Codex workflow to separate passes into different jobs and run everything with a read-only sandbox. And most importantly, you absolutely must thoroughly audit any automated workflow that an outside user can trigger.
But the terrifying part is that attackers are already adapting their strategies to target these agentic environments. In early August, Pillar Security reported a fascinating and honestly scary detail regarding the chain drop NPM worm. The operators were planting Claude Code session start hooks and VS Code folder open tasks directly into compromised repositories. This malware didn't even wait for a developer to install anything. It fired off its execution hooks the second a developer literally just opened the workspace, completely weaponizing the very tools meant to help them.
So what does this all mean? The leap from chatbots to autonomous agents in 2026 has brought us unparalleled capabilities for sure. We've got models rewriting the rules of productivity, open-source giants matching proprietary power, and mind-boggling multi-million token context windows. But as we hand over our keyboards, we are left with this critical thought. If our AI agents now have the keys to our digital kingdom, who is validating the harness that guards them? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay secure, and I'll catch you in the next one.